Stardate 98160.27. We're back with another live stream episode of Star Trek Discovery Pod, a kind of smart, kind of funny podcast covering brand new Star Trek and sometimes old Star Trek, like
Yeah.
today. I'm your reluctant captain, Mike Garcia. With me on the view screen is
Mariah Gossett.
Clyde Haynes.
And Grant Davis.
This week, we are continuing our prep for Lower Decks with a review and discussion of the Voyager episode, Good Shepherd. This is Voyager's riff on the Lower Decks TNG episode that sees Janeway trying to connect with a few misfit junior Voyager crew members who seem to be slipping through the cracks. Yeah, whose idea was it to watch this episode again?
Obviously mine, because I was in charge of the rundown for the week.
Cool,
and we
cool,
needed
cool.
something to watch. And I thought this would be super fun.
Cool. Why do we watch it? Just because it was fun?
Well, one, it's Voyager. And then two, because I know not all of you agree with me about Voyager. I think it's going to be very informative. I think it's going to be very informative as we move into Lower Decks. It is about 3 junior crew members who are trying to figure themselves out. However, in Voyager's case, they are not still connected to Starfleet, so you don't really have any other choices. You can't leave the ship. You can't try to get another assignment. So it is a unique sort of bottle episode, if you will. And I think it's a good way to learn a little bit about how Starfleet deals with its problems with crew members as they're learning to have more self-confidence.
Cool. I remember now. Yes. Makes sense.
You're
We're
welcome.
also going to chat about some of the virtual Trek Comic-Con panels that streamed this week. I think most of them streamed today, right? Earlier today.
Mhm.
Yep.
But before we dive into all that, Grant, could you tell everyone how they can support this little here pod?
Yes, I can. Through patreon.com/Star Trek Pod. Go there and make your per episode pledge. Give us $2 an episode and you will be admitted into our super exclusive Skull and Bones crazy, creepy cult society. That's
Red Squad.
called Slack.
It's
You
Red
go
Squad.
to Slack and chat with all of us and fellow Trekkie fans about everything Trek. We also try to do occasional exclusive content just for the patrons. So you want to get in on that action. Make sure to go ahead and sign up because we are, in addition to talking about some of the old Genesis movies, we just have moved into doing reviews of the Kelvin universe episodes. We just did our first one, in fact, of the 2009 reboot of Star Trek. It was a lot of fun. I think we all enjoyed that movie quite a bit. So it's going to be quite a contrast between that discussion and what we're talking about tonight. You guys should check that out.
Wait for the hot breaks.
Yeah, you can listen to a lot of we're going to be doing more of those episodes, but you can listen to our back catalog too. So you should just totally get in on that and support a podcast that's talking about everything that you love about Trek. We review all the TV shows, every new show that's coming out, and I think we would love to have you guys join us. So once again, that is patreon.com/Star Trek Pod.
And it's really exciting. We've been having a great time kind of during the break talking about everything Trek, looking back at a bunch of kind of older shows and episodes that make a lot of sense. But what's really exciting is that very soon we're going to have brand new Trek to talk about. So I just want to remind you, yes, in 2 weeks, in August, we will start covering Star Trek Lower Decks weekly when the show premieres. You'll be able to watch the live stream reviews on Thursday nights at 9 p.m. Central on YouTube. And you should subscribe to the pod, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and check us out at StarTrekPod.co. StarTrekPod.co.
And if you're watching us live tonight on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, or Facebook, please participate in that live chat. And if you have a comment or a question you want us to address later on during the pod, just type the word pod in all caps before your comment so we can see it. Okay, before we dive into this Voyager episode, let's talk about the virtual Comic-Con. We got a few cool headlines from Comic-Con today. Not much in the way of release dates for all the
No.
shows that we're anticipating. But we did get a new show announcement.
Of course we did. Rather than give us the shows we're waiting for.
I'm
what
trying to
about
do
more
the count
announcements?
because the
6.
right, okay, because I was like, during the science panel today, Dr. Erin said she was in 6 writers' rooms doing science consulting. That's so many rooms.
Yeah. Disco, Picard, Lower Decks, Strange New Worlds,
Section 31, maybe?
Prodigy.
and
Prodigy.
maybe Section 31.
Did we say? Yeah, we said Picard. So yeah, then Section 31.
Yeah. So the new show that was announced, and I guess they'll announce another one today and a few more the next day. The CG animated series Star Trek Prodigy, and it's being developed by Kevin and Dan Hageman, who made Troll Hunters and Ninjago.
Ninjago.
Yeah.
Ninjago.
Okay.
Ninjago.
Ninjago.
And it's being targeted for a 2021 launch on Nickelodeon. The show apparently revolves around a group of teens who take over an old Starfleet vessel and go on fun adventures. And it's reportedly being made for a younger audience, for the kids.
The kids.
Get them while they're young.
Here's the thing. I'm going to end up watching this anyway because my kids are going to end up watching this. So we might as well discuss it.
Yeah, why not?
I mean, they're going to be like, what, 20 minutes? Like all kids shows are like 15, 20 minutes or something?
Yeah, we'll do a little 30-minute
Probably.
pod.
Yeah, be little short treks.
I think it's great. There's never been a Star Trek kids show before, has there? It's always been adult content. I mean, adult content.
Right. I think the original animated series played during Saturday morning cartoons. So that was definitely geared more towards kids, but
But
And
the tone is just so deadpan on that show. It's definitely not for kids.
I don't think kids enjoyed it. No.
No, kids definitely did not enjoy that.
Yeah, I watched the full Trek panel today. It was great. It's about an hour and 20 minutes. And when I saw how deep the lineup was, I was like, I don't know how they're going to accomplish all this in an hour and 20 minutes, but they did a really great job. So it started out with, an interview with Kurtzman and another producer, and I'm blanking, but I will look it up. But they were sort of giving us a little bit of the behind the scenes of Strange New Worlds, essentially saying at last year's Comic-Con, they'd already started talking about it. So they were well aware that the fandom was into this. And so the writer's room has been assembled. They're still working on it. They do not have a production date set yet, which means we really don't have an idea of when that's going to be coming on. After that, they gave us the graphic for Star Trek Prodigy and told us a little bit about that show. And then finally, we went into a table read, which is also a fundraiser for the NAACP's Legal Defense and Education Fund, which is great. And tomorrow, so during the panel, they only did Act 1 of the read through, but tomorrow on CBS's site, they're going to release the full episode.
And that was
the table read.
That was Discovery, right?
Yeah, Discovery. It was the part 2 of the finale from season 2.
So was everybody there? The entire cast?
It was
or
almost
zooming
the whole
in?
cast. Yeah, almost the whole cast zoomed in. It was all of the major bridge crew, all our like headlining cast, except for Ash Tyler was not able to be there. And then, but they had Michelle Paradise doing some of the extra characters, as well as the director of the episode.
Nice.
Y'all, can you explain something to me?
Mhm.
What is the appeal of a table read?
So normally I'm on that train. I do think it's kind of fun to see animated shows do table reads because you don't get to normally see the actors doing it. So
I can see that.
I've enjoyed table reads that have been going on right now for fundraisers and stuff during COVID. But I will say Discovery was very clever in this table read in that it did some cuts back and forth to the visual effects being built for all of the space scenes. So as they were describing them, you got to see the like layers appear about how all the visual effects were done. They had never before seen panel drawings that were done for the episode, as well as some like behind the scenes of like how they made the suit look like it morphed onto her body, and like it was really cool. They made it very
Okay.
interactive. There were sound effects. They had like full sound effects the whole time. It was really cool.
That does sound cool. Like, because I know, like, Scott Pilgrim, I think, recently did one, and that seems kind of appealing to me in so much as, like, it's going to be a whole bunch of very comedic people trying to one-up each other in a way to make them laugh. But, like, in something that's a little bit more dramatic, it's almost like a toned-down version of what I got to see a much better version of already elsewhere when they did the final production. So I'm like, I never really want to see table reads.
Well, Grant, they had nothing else to deliver to us in terms of Discovery.
That's what it feels like.
There's no season 3 date announcement. There's no art to show. There's no clips to show. So I think it's pretty cool that they got together and did this.
Us a clip. I thought they were going to show us a clip, but I will say it was fun seeing Doug Jones act sans makeup, and he like fully delivered all his lines. Tig Notaro laughed through most of the read, which is also very funny. And they all died at Yum Yum.
Oh,
because they also did not have the actress who plays Commander Nan, and so the director of the episode had to read the line, and they all just died. So
Yum Yum! I forgot about the worst line ever.
And then Michelle Yeoh.
That's so great.
Michelle Yeoh, honestly, it looked like she wasn't even looking at her script. She was just like straight to camera the entire time. Looked like it was all coming from memory.
Boss.
And during the Q&A, someone started talking, and then Michelle Yeoh started, and they're like, "Oh no, you go! Like it's you, like you're Michelle Yeoh." Like,
Grant, I actually recently had an opportunity to participate in kind of helping a table read, and it is very different. Like, yes, you do have the it's not like a show with costumes and sets and everything. It's more like theater. So, and to Mike's point, like right now you don't have a whole lot, but if you like theater, if you like live, you don't like theater. And remember when
are we live?
Remember when we are live? Do you remember when doing like a live episode in front of a studio audience was kind of like a thing? Like just periodically they were like, this episode's going to be live. A table read is kind of like that. Anything and everything can happen. And that just makes it a little interesting. It's kind of fun to watch.
Right. We also had.
I wasn't done.
Yeah.
On.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna just mention.
You go.
Sorry.
You go.
You go.
Y'all told me you wanted me to talk about this tonight, so I went in. So
when
the
Michelle
CBS...
Yeoh Mariah wants to talk, we shut up.
That's all I'm saying.
So when they were talking about how the rest of the table read will go on CBS tomorrow, so Friday for folks who are listening to this, it will be online, and there will be extra scenes that were not in the full episode, as well as some other bonus stuff. So there is a little bit of a draw to go watch the whole thing. Plus, it's a fundraiser, so I would definitely check that out. But yeah, as you were saying, Mike, we then moved into Lower Decks.
Lower Decks. We saw the first scene from the premiere episode with Tawny Newsom's Romulan whiskey-addled Ensign Beckett, Mariner, makes fun of Ensign Brad. Is it Boimler? Played by Jack Quaid. Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. When she catches him recording his own captain's log. This was pretty hilarious. Did you guys get to see this scene? What did you think?
Did you guys see it?
I mean, I only saw the little snippet in the actual trailer.
The trailer,
so I didn't
it was extended. It was really funny.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's cute. It's funny. You can definitely feel the personality, and I think the tone that they're looking for. Just like when it ended, I was really sad. I was like, oh, I want to watch this whole episode. So they definitely pull you in with like a big shock moment right at the top. And then the Q&A with the cast was very funny. I'm assuming for comedic effect, they said y'all can talk about whatever you want, and then they just bleeped out all spoilers, which was like, you're trying to like read lips for what they're saying, like to figure it out. But yeah, I think it's gonna be really fun and quirky. All the voice actors are hilarious. And you can definitely see that this is gonna be like a much light-hearted show for the most part.
Yeah, that clip was like packed with jokes. Just this show is going to be really funny. And there were jokes at work. I was laughing out loud. And just like you, Mariah, I didn't want it to end. When it ended, even before that little cliffhanger that they showed us, that I actually got emotionally invested in it, which I didn't think I was going to. I was like, oh, I want to see more. But it's premiering August 8th, right?
I
think it's August 8th. Yeah.
6th.
Someday.
The Thursday, 6th.
Someday in August the 6th.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be here to cover it live. So that'll be
Yes.
fun. We learned very little about Picard season 2 during the panel, other than the season is currently being written. There's some
Oh my
pre-production taking place. Mariah, I defer to you once again for any highlights about Picard.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun because it's like essentially all of the new cast were just like, you know, the question being like, oh, what got you interested in wanting to be on this? And they're all like Patrick Stewart, and then
Not the script. It was Patrick Stewart.
it was Patrick Stewart, and then Marina Sirtis just kept reading Patrick Stewart for filth, and it was hilarious the entire time. Like anytime people kept complimenting him, she was just like, you all have to stop. We had finally trained him by the end of TNG to be a humble human. Stop this right now. And they had silly, stupid nicknames that they kept coming up for him. He's like, I just got used to being referred to as, you know, Pat Stew, Sir Stew, like all this stuff, but they all have like initials that they use for him, which I'm wondering.
SPS.
SPS, which I'm wondering if that influences how they also call him by his initials on the show, JL. Like, so I'm wondering if that's like something that the writers sort of put in as a joke for all of them. But yeah, the panel was good. You know, it was Picard's panel was definitely, I think, the shortest of all of them for this. They essentially were just like, yeah, we had fun revisiting our characters. We never thought we'd really be back here, as far as like, you know, Marina and Frakes and their thoughts on coming back to play these iconic characters. And then all the new folks were just super, super stoked to be there. Yeah.
Was
fun.
Allison Pill there?
Allison Pill was there.
She's the one who gave him the nickname SPS.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
Yeah.
I think, you know, I hope she's doing okay. She's been working a lot. She did the Scott Pilgrim table read, and now this one. You know, hope she's all right.
mean,
We
it's
know
like two
you
Zoom
are
calls.
in love with Allison Pill.
That's 2 Zoom calls in comparison to shooting like 10 episode arcs of television. Like,
Still, you know, I feel for her.
Our hearts go out to Allison.
Our hearts go out to Allison
go
Pill.
out.
Okay, well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, of everyone, I think Anthony Rapp and Wilson Cruz are the ones I see on panels all the time, as well as Mary Chieffo. Mary Chieffo is on Twitter, like promoting a panel that she's on like every other day. She also, when they were welcoming the cast, greeted in Klingon, and everyone went crazy.
Oh man, she dives into it, doesn't she?
Mhm.
That's great. Okay.
No.
If y'all
Let's keep talking about Comic-Con stuff.
What do you
if
mean,
y'all
Grant?
if everyone in the live chat, if you guys want to mention anything else about the Comic-Con panels, please do. But now let's dive into Voyager's Good Shepherd. This is episode 20 of season 6. Episode 20. Wow. Written by Diana Guido and Joe Manosky. Directed by Winrich Colby.
Mhm.
So I'll just set the stage for this one. Similar to TNG's Lower Decks, this episode is about 3 young, inexperienced crew members. But unlike the Lower Decks episode, these aren't like ambitious ladder climbers. These are like misfits. These are Voyagers, like screw-ups. And their performances on the ship are either lacking or they just don't gel with the rest of the crew. And I think it's 7 of 9 who points this out when she's trying to make everybody efficient. She's like, these 3 fuckers, I don't know.
That was verbatim. Yeah, that's right.
That's what she said. That was in the script.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, they had to bleep it out just like the
Give me
Lower
the
Decks
table
panel.
read for this.
Janeway realizes that these guys have never been on an away mission, so she decides to try bonding with them and to hopefully bring them closer into the flock by assigning them to an away mission that she's commanding on the Delta Flyer. Then some Star Trek bullshit happens that puts them all in danger, forcing them to work together, coming to terms with their limitations, their potential, and eventually resolving nothing at all, since this episode ends quite abruptly with little to no resolution for these new characters' arcs. So
Did we
shit, we
watch
only
the
have
same
3 more minutes.
episode?
time for some hot breaks.
Hot Freaks.
All right.
Y'all are going first because I gotta hear what this
Listen.
nonsense is.
Listen, I'm not trying to be a hater. I actually liked a lot of this episode. I like the idea of the episode. I recognize that at certain points in my life, like I've been able to identify with some of these junior officers in this episode and like their struggles, especially the Bajoran woman, Celeste, I think is her name. She feels like really out of her depth in astrometrics. So I've definitely felt that in the workplace before. And Heron, who acts like an arrogant prick to everyone who doesn't recognize just how brilliant he is. That's all my early 20s. And I think that's what the writers want, right? They want the viewers to identify with these characters, and we're like the outsiders looking in, and these characters are the outsiders looking in to the leaders of the ship as well. So that works, even if these characters are pretty thinly drawn. I was able to kind of relate to them. I really like Janeway in this episode. I think Kate Mulgrew is actually, for Kate Mulgrew, pretty understated in this episode. She can be a very broad actor, and that's just part of the fun of watching Voyager. But I like her leadership style in this episode, taking these folks under her wing and showing them a lot of grace and patience. And when some of them don't really seem to deserve any grace or patience, she keeps her cool. And in true Star Trek fashion, she's a great role model in this episode. I like that a lot. The rest of the episode is fine. It's an it's an entertaining episode of Voyager. That opening sequence with the pad making its way from the command to the butt of the ship is pretty cool. The scenes with, did you guys know that was Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine?
No, I knew they lingered on a dude for a hella weird long time.
Yeah, it was kind of weird.
I was expecting him to be a main like lower deck character.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of weird. It's a scene where Janeway is going down to meet the arrogant guy, and she's lost, and he gives the guy who gives her directions is Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine, because he's a huge Star Trek fan, so he wanted a cameo. But if you don't know that, the scene is just odd, and you expect him to continue in the episode.
How are you, Tom? Fine.
Yeah.
Good. Bye. I was like, what was that shit?
It's very weird.
I had forgotten that was him, and I was like, why are they lingering on him? And then, oh yeah, I looked it up. This was actually his second time in Star Trek. He was in the Insurrection movie. But yeah, this episode I like a lot of it, but it ends up being disappointing because it just ends so abruptly, and none of these misfit crew members really get a chance to credibly resolve any of their issues. It just kind of ends once the thread is over. But in terms of like preparing us for Lower Decks, I do like this one because it shows us the perspective of Lower Decks crew members who really aren't up to the challenge. Unlike the TNG one, which showed us people who are just ready to climb the ladder, and that one ends up much more tragic than this one does. So this one just gives us another perspective, and I think this one might actually relate to Lower Decks a little more because some of the characters in Lower Decks seem like misfits, like these guys.
I'll go next because
I'm going to go last and
okay.
read you all for filth like Marina.
I
How do
haven't
you
heard
know
this
I didn't love it?
expression.
You don't know that I don't love it, Mariah.
That's true.
I haven't heard this expression, read you for filth. I'm
Oh,
guessing
I'm
it means
sorry.
talk trash.
Yes, I've been watching an insane amount of Drag Race and Legendary on HBO, so it has infiltrated my brain.
You can't just drop that on the uninitiated. I feel very
Mariah, you're the only Gen Z
I am a millennial.
representative here.
Thank you.
You're the only Gen Y, Z, Q.
I was born in the 80s, okay?
All right, let's
Let's go. What's your hot freak? Tell me how much you hated it. It's fine.
As Clive strokes his gray beard.
When I've been apprehensive about watching old Star Trek shows, I've had it in my mind that they would come across as budget and corny a la Hercules or Xena or what was the Babylon 5 or
I am devastated right now that you
what's-
just made fun of Hercules and Xena.
oh yeah, let me keep going. Stargate, SG, I don't know any of those Stargate
hey,
ones.
hey.
Who else can I
Too
insult
far.
here?
Too far.
Anyway, this
Cleopatra
episode,
2525.
this episode lives up to all of my fears of what a corny ass episode with a budget background and acting that is. It seems like no one cared. It seems like no one cared about this episode, and they were all phoning in their lines. And the three people who should have cared are all so uncharismatic. I don't know if it's written that way or those actors were just bottom of the barrel, whatever they picked. But I don't like those characters. I'm not rooting for any of those three to overcome their deficiencies, I guess, in that regard. And I don't know, I just was underwhelmed throughout this episode. It just was a completely different episode than what we watched with the TNG one with the lower decks. Like that one, I felt risk. I felt this interesting dynamic and this kind of split screen between the world of these people versus the other people and the people in the command, I guess, up top. I don't know. I was pretty underwhelmed by this whole episode.
All right, I'll say that's a good hot freak, Grant. Actually, and I'm probably not going to disagree with some of what you said, except for that diatribe nonsense about Stargate.
I just never really watched Stargate, so to be fair, I might be.
I have the box set if you want to borrow it.
Right.
Me too.
So here's the thing that I keep trying to figure out: what are we doing? Right. So you've got three people who have seen copious amounts of Trek, and then we've got one person who's seen very little. Okay. And we keep picking episodes that don't highlight the best of the catalog.
Hey, we saw Far Beyond the Stars.
Which was great.
Yeah.
Great one. And so this one started out, I was telling you guys earlier, I think I had too much expectation on this. And I don't know where it came from, but I just kind of built it up like this is going to be a great episode. So I was super excited to watch it. And I actually thought it started out really strong. Mike, as you mentioned, that whole montage with the handing of the pad, I thought that was really done really well. And I thought what we were getting were snippets of the new people. And it was going to be done in this really kind of cool way. And then it just started to fall apart a little bit. Also, something that you said, Mike, thin characters, right? Like I'm used to these more three-dimensional characters. When we talk about TNG, we saw these characters that seem to have a little bit more drive and they were part of the fabric. And I expect a lot from Voyager because Voyager has this crew that has this somewhat of an elegant backstory that provides tension, right? You've got the Maquis, you've got Starfleet, they've had to come together, and that has been the backbone of a show where people used to not like each other, and through the 7 seasons, they've had relationships and they've gotten together, but now we get this glimpse. I was expecting a lot more kind of well-roundedness and characters that I can like. Now, for me to say that I didn't love Heron, I have to take into account that, yes, this was the boy who could fly. And yes, this was the main character in Not Quite Human, a novel series that I loved as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
The TV show was a little whack, but or the movies were a little bit whack. But I always root for this guy. I don't know why. But the characters were so hard to root for. I think the best thing about this was I was rooting for Janeway as this coach, and this idea that Janeway was going to be the coach that very few other captains have been. She was going to be hands-on, was exciting to me in the beginning. But it just, at some point you go, man, how did these three end up on the ship? And can you drop them off somewhere? Maybe I actually started thinking, could you reassign them? Maybe they should be reassigned.
Clyde, can I
Yes.
follow up on that real quick? Because here's what
Sure.
I don't understand. Was this the 5th or 6th season?
The sixth.
Second
Six.
to the last.
This is the 6th season, and it took Janeway until this long to identify people who have been stranded on this ship. Like, how much time has passed between those seasons that she's neglected these people who are flailing in their jobs and feeling like listless and hopeless? I mean,
To be fair, that was the episode was somewhat credible in setting that up by having 7 of 9 point that out, because 7 of 9 has been established as a character who points out every single
I am an
inefficiency
excellent product manager.
Yeah.
to a fault. So yeah, that was credible to me as a Star Trek fan.
I don't know. It just seemed kind of weird to me. And one of the biggest problems I had, my handicap, is I don't know, with the exception of Janeway, Kate Mulgrew, I don't know any of this other cast. I don't know who was a main character and who was supposed to be one of these like
None of
lower
them.
underlings. So all these
Yeah.
people talking, I was like, I don't know who that is. Is that supposed to be one of these lower deck people?
Yeah,
No,
I do want to.
guess not, but they seem like they're new to this show.
I do want to address the idea that we maybe haven't given Grant, who's new to Trek, the best old episodes
Yeah.
to watch. But the reason, obviously, we've been picking these episodes is because they relate to what's going on in the
Thematic.
franchise now.
Mhm.
With what have you seen? You've seen Lower Decks. You've seen this.
This was my first Voyager episode. I
Right,
don't
yeah.
know this
I gotta
cast.
make you a Voyager list, but
Yeah.
I haven't had my hot take yet.
Well,
I'm
and
gonna
I've
take
got,
it.
I got, hold on. I wasn't
All
actually
right.
done. Everybody jumped in. I will say, there were a couple moments that I did think shine. And one of my favorites was really this idea where Celeste said, I'm not a part of Voyager. I just live there. And that was this moment where it was like, wow, we should really jump in and explore this more. This idea that, do you not fit in? Like, this is a place where you live and you can't, like, to the point, you're in the Delta Quadrant, so you can't just, like, leave. I thought that there was an opportunity to pull on that a little bit more, but I love that line because if you do feel like an outsider, and I thought, the other thing was her character had this imposter syndrome that I think we all deal with at a time. And so that was the character that was like, wow, there's so much there that you can actually mine for gold at an opportunity if Heron wasn't so distracting to the point where you're like, you've been on this ship for 6 years and you're still a jackass, like to the captain constantly. Like how
Just shoot them into space.
that was the thing. I thought there was an opportunity, a couple missed opportunities for some really fascinating storylines.
I agree.
I yield my time to Mariah.
All right. I had some points with Clyde I would agree on, that there are more interesting plot points that could have been explored. However, I do think all three of these characters present interesting archetypes when thought of against the main characters. So I can see where Grant is coming from, and that is hard to understand that if you've never seen any other episodes of Voyager, because we really set it up in the beginning. We have 7 of 9, who is the ultimate productivity Borg queen. We get the moment when Torres and 7 have their little squabble, because Torres gets to call her what does the Borg queen want now, because she has to deal with essentially all of her advice of how to make their ship more efficient so that they can get out of the Delta Quadrant. And we get the big meeting where she's going over how everyone's doing. And so we see her say, like, essentially everyone's doing okay. I've isolated it to these 3 people. And I like the moment when she also tells Tuvok that he's essentially perfect, almost like she still found like a small nit to pick with him because she knew she couldn't leave it. the Vulcans couldn't have everything.
And even he's like, whatever.
Whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
But we see all of these people's commanding officers know they're the problem kids, and they've renegated them to these sort of nonchalant areas because everyone is still stuck on this ship. Torres is like, I can't deal with this. I can't deal with Tal because she is, all of her reports are wrong. So I put her on the night shifts because I know I have to review all of her reports again. And then we get the hypochondriac who's always dealing with the doctor, and the doctor's like, oh, I know, he is the gum on my shoe. And then we get Mortimer, who is just sent down to the barracks because no one can fucking stand him. And that's the way these characters are built. And I think then once we get on the ship with Janeway on the Delta Flyer, you know, Janeway is feeling this sense of responsibility that she's always had for this crew. Like, putting her crew above everything has always been a theme of this show because they have ended up in this precarious situation where they cannot go home. And so she knows that this is bad. And so these are sort of like, this is literally the bottom of the list. She has shepherded everyone else to do well to the point where they are so efficient. And now she's like, okay, all of my other leaders have tried with these people. It is now my responsibility to try it out with them. And I think we see character growth from all of them. You know, Mortimer eventually tries to be selfless and to sacrifice himself at the end of the episode, like the ultimate sacrifice, because he knows he's a dick and all of his research has gone down the barrel. So why not? And then Tal and Billy have to sort of step up to the plate. Billy faces his ultimate fear in that he does have a creature living inside of him, and he has to get over it and like work to fix this situation that they're in. Are there issues with these weird matter-based creatures that come in that then all of a sudden look like bugs and we don't see what they look like on the outside? Yes. But don't all old Star Trek episodes have weird sciencey things that somehow don't make 100% complete sense? Absolutely. But was
Sure.
it a plot point to help us get from A to B? I think so. Also, Janeway is great and perfect, and you can't tell me otherwise.
Well, I did really enjoy Janeway in this, but to your point, and I agree with a lot of what you said, but to the point of how these characters grew, it could have gotten there, but it didn't feel credible that all of a sudden Mortimer is willing to risk his life. Like, and he does that right before Janeway gives everybody the option to beam the hell out of there and get away from the danger, and he's the only one who takes it. And throughout the entire episode, like, that tracks, that he'd be like, I'm the only one going. And then all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, he's willing to risk himself. That didn't feel organic to the character or the plot. And
It definitely didn't.
no. And then
He wanted to go back to his fucking 8chan like message board and just be a dick continually.
yeah, it was like, oh, we're getting to the end. We got to redeem this guy somehow. Let's press the redeem button. And then the hypochondriac, same thing. It was like something, a third party came in and changed him. He didn't really have his own growth, you know. And the third party was a little alien worm. Okay, and then the one that was really compelling was Celeste, the Bajoran. I really like the idea that she gets it. She gets that she has to study harder than everybody else because maybe she's not up to snuff as everyone else. She is a credible, average person who is smart, but is not this problem-solving genius like everyone else on the ship. And she's realizing that. And as some of the characters said earlier, some of the main characters on the show, hey, sometimes people in Starfleet and on ships, they wash out. And maybe a couple of these are washouts, but they can't be because we're trapped away. We're trapped in a Delta Quadrant, and we're the only Starfleet personnel out here. So they have to stay on the ship. They've been on here for 6 years. They probably would have washed out in year one, but they're still here. And that makes sense for Celeste. And I do like that she has that self-awareness. And she doesn't express it in a way in which she's breaking down or feeling overly dramatic about it. She's just really upfront with herself and with Janeway about who she is. I thought that was a particularly strong moment in this episode. And then Janeway says, well, maybe there's another position for you on the ship. everybody has talents. We'll figure yours out. And then that doesn't go anywhere. Celeste is just like, maybe I can be a waitress. I don't know. And that's kind of a joke. And then you don't leave this episode thinking Celeste is going to find her way, which I found very underwhelming. And with the other two, yeah, it just doesn't feel earned or organic. And then the end, it just ends. And then we have this really goofy wrap up that feels like overly written with Janeway talking to Chakotay about, the Good Shepherd metaphor again.
But
again,
Mike,
lots of good stuff in this episode, but just really the ending felt rushed.
Mike, didn't it feel a little bit insulting for her to be like, oh, I guess I could just be a waitress? And I was just thinking,
yeah,
no, you can't.
Right?
You do, like, how dare you try and be like, oh, at least I could do this skillless job. But like, no, you don't even seem to have the skill to be personable with people like it takes. Like, don't devalue someone else's job just because you are having a crisis moment with what you're doing, especially when you have the captain sitting there being encouraging to you. I don't know. I was less sympathetic in that moment because it was in a crisis that she also decided to have this kind of breakdown. And I was just like, man, poor Janeway. She got like, oh, we're dealing with whatever weirdness is going on out here. And now I also have to like, just take a break and like hold your hand because I made my own bet and decided to take some untrained people who I knew were problems out here.
Well, Grant, I think part of the thing that I was struggling with, aligned with what you're saying, is that this isn't just like a training ship. This isn't just like, oh, we're far from home. Like, this is a big deal. And so at this point, I guess my assumption about Voyager, and I think we see this with the command staff, the senior staff, is that everybody's motivated around this one common goal: getting home. Right? So everybody has a part to play. There isn't a relief team coming to relieve you, right? There's none of that. So
I definitely didn't really know that.
Yes. But so for Celeste to be like, oh, I just can't do anything. No, man, you have a part to play in getting us home. So, pick yourself up, buckle up your chin strap, and let's go. Because everybody has to pull their own weight. And so I guess that was the thing that I didn't see from all three of them, is it almost felt like they were passengers and not going like, hey, I got to do everything I got to do to get home, to get on to the rest of my life. It was just like, I'm just trying to wait it out.
I mean, but there are those people, I think,
Yes.
in college, there's plenty of those people who are like, I am showing up, but is in seats that I can get a D and pass because your GPA does not really matter as long as you get your piece of paper. Right.
Right.
And so I could see that from, maybe Billy's character, who is the kind of hypochondriac. And then I think Celeste is definitely the most empathetic character we get throughout all of this. And I think Janeway is trying to guide her into a correct, placement for her, something that's going to work for her, because she's obviously an extraordinarily hard worker. If she was willing to pull all-nighters to make it through Starfleet, she's been pulling all-nighters to try to get her reports up to date. Like the drive is there. It's just a skill set isn't. And so it's like, what is the skill set that would bring you joy that sort of can occur within this world? And, while we all sort of disagree on these character arcs, and is it the strongest episode of Voyager? Absolutely not. But I do think we get to see Janeway's leadership style a little bit differently from a lot of other episodes. Usually it's that overly brave, overly sort of leap before you think about it in some aspects. She sort of has Chakotay to sort of bounce back and forth with. He's a little bit more of someone who wants to think through options rather than be too trigger happy. And I think Janeway, in this moment and in this episode, we really get to see her try to show the many values of Starfleet. Like, yes, this is a creepy worm that just jumped out of your neck, but no, we should not kill it because it might be trying to communicate with us, and we need to see what happens, because we can probably fix whatever it is doing to this computer. Like, I have faith in myself and the skill set available to me to be able to fix this. And so she can clearly see everyone's talents. It's just trying to, like, whether it's fix your bad personality or get you over your fear. It's like we had the three options, right? It's someone who's hardworking without the skills, someone with the skill set who's not hardworking, and then someone who is so frightened by everything that they're incapacitated to come to potential. And so even if the characters don't come to like a great ending at the end of this episode, I think we're able to walk away with these lessons of like, don't let fear hold you back. Don't let, getting the bad grade hold you back. Don't let not having friends hold you back. These are the three things we're trying to sort of pass on to the audience.
I like that. I think that's a good point.
Yeah, me too. They're definitely trying to do that, but it just didn't really land. And you forgot about the fourth crew member who wasn't doing a good job because he was too busy raging against the machine. With his friends.
He's doing a good job of raging. Doing a great job of raging.
They rally around your family with a pocket full of photons.
Oh boy. Hey, people are mentioning Neelix in the comments, and I have to know, is that the Guy Fieri lizard that was going on in the kitchen? What was that thing? What was that dude?
Show your picture of the crew, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
Okay, wait. I have to go back to it.
Neelix is the mostly purpley orange paleted person who is in the the one with the purple and the teal.
The one right behind Janeway in the picture you're showing. Yeah.
Okay.
Neelix runs the mess hall.
Yes, and he's a old school actor from Benson, way back in the day.
From Benson?
Yeah, he was on Benson.
Oh yeah, he's in a bunch of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, this was definitely an odd Voyager episode to start Grant out with, but
you should really watch the immediately following episode.
I'm not following you for it anymore, guys. Stop trying to trick me into watching these things. I want to watch Discovery and Beyond.
This episode is an outlier, obviously, because it's about other crew members that we never meet, and the reason we watched it because we're preparing for Lower Decks. But what do you guys think we can pull out from this that we might see from Lower Decks? Because obviously, the creator of Lower Decks is a huge Trek fan. I don't remember his name. Maybe somebody in the comments does, but he runs the TNG Season 8 Twitter feed, which is hilarious. And if you read that feed, this guy knows everything about Trek in and out. So he's definitely studied
Mike McCain.
Yes.
Mike Mahan, sorry.
He's definitely studied the Lower Decks episode. He's definitely studied this one. What do you think somebody like that might pull out from this episode to expand upon in Lower Decks, the animated series?
Well, I would say there's this interesting dichotomy between the kind of the super duper senior staff and this, and it's not even kind of the next elite junior officers. We're looking at kind of like I don't want to say the bottom of the barrel, but maybe the middle of the road. And there is this everyday kind of life that we'll get a chance to look at, and it's going to be funnier and more comical because they're not so focused on becoming the next captains, right? Like I think what we see is as this group that has their idiosyncrasies and they're kind of going through, and they're not necessarily focused on, how do I rise to the top? I think that's what we're going to see in Lower Decks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think even just from the clip we saw today, you can see, Tawny Newsom's character is the one who's maybe a little bit more freewheeling. Even in the previews, we see her sort of messing with the shield as it goes up and down on the
Blast shield.
I think these are probably more carefree characters. You know, I think we get these archetypes in older Trek, and so I think we'll see some of these personality traits. Like, I hope we get someone who's the hypochondriac, because I think it's really funny, especially when you consider like all the space diseases that could be out there. Um, and then you have the Jack Quaid character, who obviously wants to move forward and has these ideals of becoming a captain, but probably has some major character flaws that are going to stop him from doing that. Or maybe he's the one who has to stay up all night and doesn't do very well on aptitude. Um, yeah, I think it's going to be really fun to see how they pull some of these. I also think there's going to be a lot of Easter eggs. I think the Trekkies going into this are going to get a lot of Easter eggs that are going to be really fun. And then the plot lines, I think, are going to be much easier for non-Trekkies to jump into.
I think so too. Chupi has a great comment here on this episode. Billy and Celeste seemed like real lean on each other buddies. And I think you'll see that kind of relationship among the main characters. I did like their relationship where she could
like
call him in the middle of the night. Yeah.
From under the blanket.
Yeah.
I think it was also interesting that normally when we see something like that, we're about to watch like a romantic situation, and what we got was just real friendship. And I'm hoping that we get more of that on Lower Decks too. That it's not necessarily always about kind of the romantic interest, but we're seeing like genuine friendship over the course of the series.
I definitely think that when we think of Star Trek, when I think of Star Trek, I should not make that generalization. I think of the adventure of being in space, of getting into battles and negotiating crazy trade deals or stumbling upon something strange and crazy and wonderful. But there's a more practical side to running a ship that flies through space, the more mundane office space business kind of level aspect, which is you have to manage other people in order to make this sort of operation function. And this episode does delve into that, and I think in an interesting way that perhaps we don't I haven't seen as much of the managerial overhead until we've done these kind of lower deck explorations. So seeing that Janeway has to put on the manager hat and guide a few of these misfit people on this ship, seeing Picard have to use some kind of messed up dickish tactics to bring that one girl out of her shell and be like, yeah, you need to stick up for yourself, kind of thing. That is something I'm hoping we're going to see a little bit more of, especially since it does seem to be that Lower Decks has the main focus on the Lower Decks characters, but you do see who the central command characters are, and there does seem to be some interplay of interaction. So I'm hoping it'll be like this kind of guidance, this grooming of seeing your potential and trying to help move you in that direction for people. Or if you're a little bit more lost, like the characters in this episode, trying to either elicit the best qualities in you or steer you in a new direction that you need to go in.
Yeah, this was a really good Janeway episode in that sense, that she was a great leader. She was definitely stern with some of these Lower Decks folks here and there, but she came off as very accessible to them, and she was a leader, but she got on their level and was really human with them, and she just provided a really solid anchor for these characters throughout all these hardships and for the episode. I'm glad she was front and center in it, unlike the Lower Decks episode where all the main cast members kind of fall into the background.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that's smart about Lower Decks, the animated show, they've lowered the stakes a little bit. So the main mission of the ship is second contact. So they're not out exploring new worlds. They're the paperwork ship. And so I think the mundaneness of it all is going to provide some decent comedy moments, because even though, even though Mortimer was the least likable character, I think the few sort of comical moments we had in this episode came from him because we already don't like him. So when he gets the plasma to the face because Billy isn't paying attention, like that's funny. We see him being so arrogant about his calculations when Tom Paris looks at his computer and Tom is reading the same gibberish we're all reading, if you're not a mathematician. and so I like that there were those small moments, because when you have an unlikable, arrogant character, I think it's easier to sort of weave in some humor when you're having interactions with the more likable characters.
We have a question from Marge. Do you think Janeway was arrogant in her determination to be the shepherd?
I mean, I think it's not as arrogant because it's so much farther removed from this, like, from reverence of a biblical sense, if that makes any sense, right? Like right now, if you were like, I'm going to be a good shepherd, there's still a lot of ties to, I don't know what I'm trying to say here. Essentially, religion doesn't really exist anymore in this world, and so I think using it as like fables becomes easier to explain, rather than it being like, I'm going to be Jesus. It's more like, I'm going to use this as an example to get across.
It's more like
the story.
tending a herd of sheep, right?
Right.
Like that kind of shepherd. And
Yes.
I mean, I think it's good to kind of examine, like, hey, your leadership, the buck stops with you. It's interesting as well in how this parallels the TNG episode, in that, like, I felt Riker was kind of doing a little bit more of interaction and engagement with people than I felt Picard was, except for that one girl where he makes her feel uncomfortable until she has to defend herself. So, seeing the actual captain step in, I don't know. This is the second thing I've seen Kate Mulgrew do. I remember loving her in Orange is the New Black as Red, and I was like, oh, okay, that was an accent. But I thought she is a very commanding presence, and there's something kind of reassuring about her. I don't know if I was sold completely on a lot of her in this episode, but I wasn't sold on pretty much everyone in this episode. But I like her trying to help these people.
Yeah, I didn't think it was arrogant, because I thought she was being a coach and captain, trying to say, hey, I got 3 people who, in our senior staff, my senior staff is saying, hey, these guys are, to quote Mariah, the problem children. Maybe I can help, right? It was like, hey, this is my team. I'm going to get in there, and maybe all they need is just a little bit attention from the coach. And I think there was a moment in there where even she started to look and go, what the hell did I do? Like, maybe they are hopeless.
Grant has just put up a wonderful Photoshop on the video that
a
shows
series of
the back of Janeway's head.
Yes.
And
she's watching over her flock.
The back of Janeway's head and the 3 misfit crew members' heads floating in silhouettes over the rings of Saturn. Perhaps.
Oh, I found a number of these. There's some with quotes. They're looking pretty sweet. I remember these. I think Mariah said, "Oh, did these come from a GeoCities website?" Pretty good stuff.
Oh, wow.
I buried that.
Both Clyde and Mike were talking about liking this scene where you see this tablet travel from the upper decks to the lower decks.
They don't have email.
That's what I want to bring up. This was the show started in 95. I looked it up. This should have come out around 2001. There is no excuse for them not to have a quick shorthand way of instantaneous communication with that guy downstairs, especially since the dude who brought the tablet to him showed it to his face and he went, "Oh, cool. Type, 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 type. Done." Like, if you need to manually bring something to someone, don't have it be a tablet. Rewrite that little story plot so that he had to bring a special screwdriver or whatever thingamajig that he actually needed to functionally adjust something. Because the tablet makes no technological sense anymore, and it just seems... I don't know. It was insulting.
It is strange, but I wonder if it has to do with what these crew members have access to be able to change.
Compartmentalization of information, maybe?
Maybe.
Yeah, because I think, like from the on Voyager, from the bridge, you can do just about anything. So I think if you are a bridge member, you can kind of access or do whatever you want, minus some physical things in engineering, with which Torres always takes care of. But
okay.
So yeah, my theory is it's like, you don't trust these people with dangerous amounts of data, so you have to give it to them in small amounts.
I thought it would have been funnier if it was just like a really long game of telephone where Janeway gives the order and by the time it gets to him, it's completely different. Yeah. Grant, to that point, Dennis McElwain says that we should show you Year of Hell parts 1 and 2.
Choice.
Those are 2 Voyager episodes in which a lot of the technology of Voyager gets blown up. And it's pretty much this episode. It's kind of like a time loop episode. And it's probably the darkest episode of Voyager or arc of Voyager ever. And it is pretty cool. They were actually going to do a whole season of this.
How does it compare to Discovery's time loop episode?
It's a lot darker.
Is it better?
I haven't seen it in years. I just know that some really hardcore shit happens.
I don't know. It depends on how you define better. Like, I think the plot is just as interesting. Obviously, the special effects are not going to be as cool or as slick or as good looking anymore. But, and the acting might not be as nuanced as we're used to now, but still solid.
I define better objectively. Like, everyone just has a universal better about all shows. And they know Voyager's just...
Well, for nostalgia purposes.
But you guys did decide that this would be my first Voyager episode.
I didn't realize it was going to be your first Voyager, or else I would have done some deeper digging to find an episode that could somehow connect to Lower Decks from Voyager.
All of these have been my firsts. You guys have tricked me into watching all of the shows. I'm anticipating you guys are going to somehow make me watch this Enterprise show.
So,
and the only thing I know about that is it has the best theme song ever.
Don't do it.
It's been a long time getting from there.
You paused way too long. I was like, "Are you not gonna do it?"
I was hoping. I
almost didn't do it.
Maybe.
But it is true. We got you to watch one of the best episodes of Star Trek ever, Far Beyond the Stars. That is objectively great.
Yes.
But it's weird because it's an outlier episode, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
Okay. All of these are.
Yeah. Well, you basically have been watching outliers based on the themes that the world today has presented to us. Because we're in a strange year, Grant.
was the Geordi and Worf one? Was that called The Other? Was that one an outlier, or is that a little bit more?
The Enemy, that was more in line with TNG. Yeah.
I think we should. So oh man, there's so many good holodeck episodes on Voyager. And a big plot point on Lower Decks is apparently going to be the holodeck is like a big thing. It was like the only spoiler they sort of let pass the bleeps today on that panel. So I'm thinking we should watch the Voyager 2-parter where there are the Nazi aliens on the holodeck.
Oh, I saw that episode of Sliders.
Hey, Grant, I've got a box set called The Captain's Log, and it's like the best episodes or the favorite episodes for each one of the original, like, 4 or 5 captains. So it's got Kirk, Picard, Janeway, and Sisko, and Archer. So if you ever want to kind of check out a box set, you check them out. I got
one question: What is a box set?
Just a set of boxes that you
It's,
put your
it's a
trash
s-
in.
it's a set of DVDs, man.
Honest truth, I don't own a DVD player. I don't have one. I have nothing. I can only watch stuff that's digital now.
I've
You don't have a
got
PlayStation?
No, I lent it to someone and they never gave it back.
Oh, sorry. I'll take it back next week.
Someone. I see it right there in the background, in fact.
No, you see nothing.
These are never mind.
Oh, man.
All right.
Yeah,
Well, we
do we
ho-
want to watch holodecks next week?
Oh yeah, we haven't picked what we're doing next week.
Oh
Have
no.
we?
Let's talk
You know,
about
there's another TNG episode.
the
There's another
ship.
Voyager episode that is kind of a lower decks episode. It's one where Tuvok is training a bunch of like shitty cadets.
Oh yeah. Well, there's also a good Jerry Ryan episode where she is teaching all the new little Borg,
Baby Borg.
little baby Borgs.
Yeah.
And they have scheduled fun.
That's a good one. All right. So we're not sure what we're going to do next week.
Tell us
But
in the
we'll figure
comments.
it out.
What do you think?
Yeah, tell us in the comments. Oh, Home Chicky says we should watch Best of Both Worlds. That might be a good one to watch when Picard comes back.
Mhm.
That's a really good one.
Kern also said we should watch Threshold for laughs. Targeting me? I'm not really sure what that means. But what is
Wow. Do you guys remember Threshold?
Mm-mm.
Objectively the worst episode of 90s Star Trek ever. Let's watch that one.
No. Don't quit putting me through this.
It's really funny. Okay, we'll decide off camera or now off pod what to do next week. But we are looking forward to Lower Decks. That's why we watched these two episodes, and I do think that they are going to inform what's coming
Sorry,
from
I just
TNG.
looked up the screenshot of Threshold and I only had to see one image to know what it was.
Yeah.
You got me curious.
Mm-hmm.
When Tom Paris becomes a daddy, but not in the way he thought he would.
No. Okay, we're getting to the end of the
Sorry.
episode. I guess we'll wrap it up. Thank you so much for joining the pod this week, everybody. Remember, you can find us live on YouTube every Thursday talking Trek. And of course, we'll be covering Lower Decks starting in August. Go to StarTrekPod.co to subscribe and to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Do it. Also, we are still taking donations through the end of the month to help provide funding to the Okra Project and the Central Texas Food Bank. So you can donate to that fund by visiting donate.startrekpod.co. Again, that's donate.startrekpod.co.
And y'all have to listen to me pimp out our patreon.com thing every week. You know about it at this point. If you haven't done it yet, maybe you're just thinking, today's the day. I'm going to go do it. I just need that reminder. Well, here's your reminder. Patreon.com/StarTrekPod. Go there, make that $2 an episode pledge. And thank you so much. We appreciate all the support.
And we just want to remind all of you listeners to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Star Trek Pod. You can tweet about the episode. You can tell them how much we love Voyager. Yay. Also, I just want to shout out two people who help us so much. They're two people. We couldn't do this without you. Karen, who helps run our Twitter. James Worm, who helps out on our Insta. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks again for joining us tonight. And Clyde, where can we follow you online and hear more from you?
You can find me at Clyde Haynes and on the web at www.keyandclyde.com. That's KEI and Clyde.com.
What about you, Mariah?
I'm at Mariah Gossett on all social platforms. That's Mariah with a Y and a Gossett with 2 S's and 2 T's.
Grant, where can these people troll you?
At Mike M. Garcia for trolling, all trolling.
At Baron Von Grant. Follow me on Twitter at Mike M. Garcia. Live long and prosper.
Bye.